Thank you, Craig. Well, I must say it's been a very exciting program, and I'm glad that I'm coming on last because I've absorbed all of the information that was coming across from the brilliant speakers and sort of reflecting on that in my talk. Can you hear me?
Yep, you can.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so thanks for the opportunity to speak here and to share some of my thoughts and to basically, more importantly, to learn from the brilliant panel of speakers. Okay, so as you described, I'm the founder of IT Varsity, but I also run a number of other companies like Clink, Zende Educational Apps, and CompuKids. Now, one of the things that prompted me to start IT Varsity, to found IT Varsity, was to find a different way of learning, a type of learning that actually goes way back to when universities were not accessible to the most better part of the population. When you needed to learn a skill, you would typically go to a master, somebody who is experienced in that skill, and you would be an apprentice to that person until such a time that you yourself became a master in that. So basically, you would spend years and years and years studying under a master, and then you would become a master yourself. So I started IT Varsity more as an experiment than anything else. So the idea was to take people who have graduated from universities with this body of knowledge, of theoretical knowledge, particularly in the computer science space, and to accelerate them into software engineers, into coders, into careers in the software engineering space. And while the business was small, I mean, I started this little classroom in my backyard where I had 10, maximum 10 people. Things were going great. But then the one day I actually encountered a bit of a problem as my classes started to grow, right? So I would teach the concepts as you guys are very familiar with, and I would ask my students to go and complete assignments. For example, I would teach a concept in Java and then get the students to go and write a bit of code for me or build a little application to complete certain tasks. But I noticed that time after time after time, the work wasn't being done. And this was a bit frustrating for me. And so one day I decided to interview the learners, and I asked one particular learner, what is going on? You guys seem to understand the concepts in class, but why don't you complete my assignments that I give you? And so the one learner put it very nicely, and actually he shaped the way that I think about education since then. And he said, sir, the time when I need you the most, you are not there. So I thought about this and asked him, what do you mean? He says, look, understanding the concepts, that's the easy part. I understand that. You don't even have to explain it to me twice. I get the concepts. But it's a time when I'm doing these exercises that I struggle the most. And I wish that you were there, but I'm at home and you are somewhere else, and it's not possible to ask you the questions. And with a subject like Java, which is highly practical, which is with coding in general, where one little dot out of place could crash your entire program, it can become very frustrating for learners. So what I did was I actually inverted the whole learning routine. So basically, I made videos of my lessons and got the learners to study those lessons at home. So they learned the concepts at home. The next day in class, they came with the concepts all buzzing in their heads. And then I would get them to do tasks, programming tasks. And I would look over their shoulders and I would help them to debug their code, help them to complete those assignments. Obviously, they would do everything themselves, but I would assist where they needed help. So fast forward to say around 2020, 2021, when my classes went from 10 and 12 just 7 or 8 years ago to 10,000. And now we're sitting with a different problem. And that problem is, how do I look over the shoulders of 10,000 students? I mean, currently at IT Varsity, if I'm not mistaken, there's about 20,000 students enrolled for our software engineering courses. So how do we do this? How do we fix this? How do I become a mentor to so many people? Clearly impossible. And that's when the conversation around AI came in, and the revelation last November when ChatGPT, generative AI, came into the picture. And that was a major revelation, because now, for the first time, there was the possibility to actually create clones of myself as the lecturer, as the mentor to all of these students using AI. And so that's what we are doing. We're using AI to create essentially a clone of me or any lecturer that lectures at IT Varsity, so that the learners can get almost personalized mentorship, almost personalized guidance through through this AI, which basically mimics what the lecturer was supposed to do in terms of supporting the students. So Caitlin actually stands for Kylix, which is the actual name of the company that owns IT Varsity. Kylix AI tool for learning enhancement. It's actually a very, very comprehensive tool. So what does Caitlin do? Caitlin can or will be able to, it's already in active development, parts of it are already developed, but it will use a generative AI to support learners at any time that they need support, whether they are working during the day or the middle of the night. So they would be able to ask questions, even put in snippets of code and get some hints on how to fix that code. Caitlin will also, more importantly, do learning data analytics. Now, we are generating tons and tons of data, not only as IT Varsity, but even in my app business, Xander Educational Apps, for example. We just did a major rollout in the Western Cape in partnership with the Western Cape Education Department of our apps. Apps for kids from early childhood development through primary school phase. We rolled out to 200 schools. So in effect, we are going to be working with close on to 50, 60,000 children. But I'm a stickler when it comes to data. I want to know everything about what these learners are doing. Are they using our apps? How are they using them? Where are they succeeding? Where are they struggling? I want all kinds of information, and we are collecting that data. But now, where does that data go for analytics, or providing insights? That's where Caitlin comes in again. So Caitlin will be offering us very, very complex and very important data that we will be able to give to the Western Cape Education Department. And as we expand throughout South Africa, both with the Xander educational apps and CompuKids. CompuKids is our brand to do coding and robotics classes with kids. We want to be able to provide data on every single child, every single area, every single city and town and rural area, how the learners are doing and what they are doing. Caitlin also will do monitoring and evaluation. And the reason for this is very practical, because Caitlin will be able to determine which learners are struggling, which learners are at risk, and then offer them preemptive support. So it will say something like, hey, Tom, I see you've been working very fast, but when you came to this section, you seem to have slowed down. How can I help you? And Caitlin will be your friend in that sense. And in that way, it will do learning diagnostics, and it'll provide feedback both to the learner and to us. So we will be able to detect in our curriculum bottlenecks where learners are finding difficulty on certain concepts. And so we would be able to go in and sort of revamp those sections or offer more support in those sections, in the more challenging, more difficult sections. And the learners will be given customized learning paths. So that's one of the biggest problems in cumulative subjects like mathematics and coding, right? If you missed a concept somewhere along the line, then down the line, that's going to come back and haunt you. So Caitlin will detect that, and it will say to the learner, perhaps you've missed out something in the section under for loops in Java. Why don't you go back to lesson so-and-so and work through that and come back here, and that will assist you in understanding this. Now, it's all very complex, right? But thanks to the slew of AI and the advancements of AI, these are now well within our reach. And as I said, Caitlin is already in active development, and we are now speaking to a number of companies next month onwards on a round of funding. I mean, up until now, IT Varsity has grown considerably, and we've worked with some of the biggest companies, as you guys probably saw in the previous slide. But this was all with zero funding. This was all bootstrapped, as they call it in the startup ecosystem. But to go to something as complex as Caitlin, we are going to need help, and we're going to bring in some of the best AI experts in the country to help us develop this tool to a point where it can be applied not just by IT Varsity, but by any learning institute, and not just when it comes to IT subjects like coding and software engineering, but pretty much any faculty, any subject. And that's on the roadmap, and that's what I call IT Varsity version 3.0. So that's it. I know my presentation was a bit short, but I think that gives a lot more time for questions and answers. And yeah, once again, thanks for this opportunity, Craig and Professors Craig and Manoj. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I will conclude with that. Thank you so much.